Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something really fascinating: lucid dreaming and dream yoga.
Yeah, we've got quite a mix of material you sent over everything from ancient traditions to modern science, even Reddit posts.
Exactly. And our goal here is to sort of sift through all that and pull out some, practical steps, things you can actually do to maybe bring these practices into your life.
Right, looking at how they might boost self-awareness, maybe unlock some personal growth.
Mm.
We're seeing perspectives from Hindu texts, Buddhist dream yoga teachings.
And then there's the scientific angle, like Stephen LaBerge's work and academic papers comparing different views. Plus, like you said, what people are actually discussing online right now.
It's a pretty rich tapestry. You've got these ancient ideas about the nature of reality in dreams,
Mm.
alongside lab studies looking at brain waves during lucid states. It gives us a lot to work with.
For sure. And the big promise, kind of the exciting part mentioned in one of the sources, Lion's Roar, is tapping into these untapped reservoirs of wisdom.
Yeah, the idea that you can gain insights, maybe solve problems, even work through stuff emotionally, all while you're asleep.
It sounds almost too good to be true, but let's unpack it. Where do we start if someone listening wants to actually try this? What's step one?
Well, a few sources, especially Lion's Roar, really stress starting with strong motivation, like a clear intention.
Okay, motivation. What does that mean exactly in this context?
It's basically the driving force, the genuine desire to become lucid in your dreams. They refer to it sometimes as karma, not in the cosmic sense, but as the volitional energy you put behind it.
Ah, okay. So it's like planting a seed.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You need that strong resolve. Think about setting an intention to wake up at a certain time without an alarm.
Right. Sometimes that actually works. You just decide firmly.
Exactly. So the actionable step here is pretty simple. Before you fall asleep, make a firm, clear decision. Tell yourself, tonight, I will recognize that I'm dreaming.
Repeat it a few times, maybe.
Yeah, just really focus that intention as you're drifting off.
Okay, got it. Strong intention first. What's next? I imagine you need to actually remember your dreams to know if you were lucid.
You hit it. Dream recall is fundamental. Lion's Roar points this out as essential. If you don't remember your dreams, well,
You've got nothing to work with. Makes sense. I know mine can be pretty fuzzy sometimes. How do you get better at remembering?
there are a couple of concrete things. First, the classic advice:
Yeah.
keep a dream journal right by your bed, pen ready.
Okay.
Second, the moment you wake up, like the very moment before you even move or open your eyes, fully ask yourself, was I dreaming?
Ah, catch it before it fades.
Exactly. Then maybe close your eyes again for a second, try to grab any lingering feeling or image, any little scrap.
And write it down immediately, even if it's just a fragment.
Yes, even tiny snippets. Write them down. Over time, this really trains your brain to pay more attention to dreams and hold on to them longer.
Okay, intention setting, check. Dream journaling and immediate recall, check. So now we're set up to remember. How do we actually, trigger the lucidity itself?
Right, this is where some specific techniques come in. Lion's Roar talks about prime time, dream time.
Ooh, sounds important. What's that?
It's the period roughly about 2 hours before your normal wake-up time. Apparently, REM sleep is more prevalent then. Dreams are often longer and more vivid.
Okay, so the later part of the sleep cycle.
Yeah, and there's a technique specifically designed to leverage this. It's often called the wake back to bed technique, or WBTB.
Wake back to bed. How does that work?
It's actually quite straightforward, though it takes some discipline. You set an alarm to wake yourself up about, say, 2 hours earlier than usual.
Okay, deliberately interrupting sleep.
Yep. Then you stay awake for a short period, maybe 15 to 30 minutes. Lion's Roar suggests about 15 minutes or so.
What do you do during that time? Just sit there.
You use that time to really reinforce your intention. Read about lucid dreaming, maybe review your dream journal, and strongly repeat your goal. When I go back to sleep, I will realize I'm dreaming. I will remember my dreams.
Ah, so you prime your mind again while you're briefly awake.
Exactly. Then you go back to sleep. And Lion's Roar says this might be perhaps the single most effective method for achieving lucidity.
Wow, because you're re-entering sleep, possibly going straight into REM, but with that intention fresh in your mind?
That seems to be the idea. You're sort of tricking your mind-body system a bit, increasing the odds of conscious awareness kicking in during the dream state.
Okay, that WBTB technique sounds really promising. Definitely worth trying. What else? Are there things we can do during the day?
Yes, definitely. Lion's Roar brings up the idea of using dream signs, but applying the concept to waking life.
Dream signs. Like things that typically happen in dreams, flying or things changing unexpectedly.
Sort of, but they frame it a bit differently. They talk about noticing the assumptions we make about waking reality, that things are solid, lasting, independent. They call this the unholy trinity.
Huh. Okay, so things feeling solid and permanent, how is that a dream sign?
Well, the idea is that in dreams, things aren't inherently solid or permanent, right? They shift and change. By questioning the apparent solidity and permanence of your waking world throughout the day.
You develop a habit of questioning reality itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You ask yourself periodically, wait, could this be a dream? Am I dreaming right now? Do a little reality check. Try pushing your finger through your palm. Or look at text, look away, look back. Does it stay stable?
Ah, the classic reality checks.
Right. The goal isn't to become detached, but to cultivate this continuous thread of awareness, this habit of questioning. That habit can then surface within a dream, triggering lucidity.
That's clever. It's like training your critical faculty to stay online more often, even potentially when you're asleep.
Precisely. It bridges the gap between waking and dreaming awareness.
Okay, so we've got intention, recall, WBTB reality checks during the day. Now, what about dealing with, the less pleasant side of dreams? Nightmares.
Yeah, that's a big one. And Lion's Roar has some really interesting, maybe counterintuitive advice here.
Don't just run away screaming.
Pretty much. If you become lucid during a scary dream, the advice is actually to stay. To consciously choose not to run, but to face the frightening imagery or situation.
Whoa, okay. That takes guts. Even in a dream, why?
Because the insight, they suggest, is that the fear doesn't come from the content of the dream itself, the monster, the chasing, whatever. It comes from your belief that it's real and threatening, your habit of taking it as solid.
Ah, so if you're lucid, you know it's a dream and therefore it can't actually harm you.
Exactly. You recognize its illusory nature. So the actionable step is, if you find yourself lucid in a nightmare, consciously stop. Observe the fear. Observe the scary thing. Remind yourself, this is a dream.
And what's the benefit of doing that, beyond just conquering a bad dream?
The potential carryover to waking life is huge. It's practice in facing fear, in recognizing how we often reify our anxieties, make them seem more solid and powerful than they are. By facing dream fear, you learn something about the nature of fear itself.
That's deep. Using the dream state as a kind of emotional training ground.
You could definitely see it that way. A safe space to practice relating differently to difficult experiences.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Now, are there any other, maybe more traditional or physical things mentioned in the sources? Like, does it matter how you sleep?
Yes, a couple of sources touch on that. Both the LaBerge paper and The Dream of God mention the Tibetan tradition regarding sleeping posture.
Oh, yeah. What's the tradition?
Traditionally, it's suggested men sleep on their right side, women on their left. The idea relates to influencing subtle energy channels, or nadis.
Interesting. Does the science back that up?
Well, LaBerge's research is interesting here. His studies did find that sleeping on the right side seemed generally more conducive to lucid dreaming for both men and women.
Oh, so the right side seems beneficial, but maybe not the specific gender distinction from the tradition.
That's what his findings suggested, yeah. The reason isn't entirely clear from a purely physiological standpoint in the sources,
Right.
but the correlation was observed.
So a possible actionable step is maybe try sleeping on your right side.
It's something you could cautiously experiment with, sure. See if you notice any difference. Be aware of the traditional view, but also the scientific finding.
Okay. What about breathing? That often comes up in these kinds of practices.
It does. LaBerge mentions the Tibetan power of breath practices, often involving specific postures and controlled breathing techniques as part of dream yoga.
Are there simple breathing exercises we can try just for lucid dreaming induction?
You know, the sources we looked at don't really lay out specific simple breathing exercises just for beginners aiming for lucidity. It seems to be part of a deeper, more integrated practice in the Tibetan context.
Gotcha. So maybe something to explore further down the line if you get deeper into dream yoga itself.
Right. It wasn't presented as a quick tip for getting lucid tonight, more as an element of the broader yoga.
Okay. What about visualization? Is that mentioned?
Yes. LaBerge also notes the power of visualization in Tibetan dream yoga. For instance, visualizing the syllable AH, often described as a red syllable at the throat center.
Visualizing AH at the throat. Okay, that sounds maybe a bit more accessible as a pre-sleep thing.
It could be.
Mm.
As a beginner-friendly step, you could try a simple visualization before sleep. It doesn't have to be complex.
Like what?
Maybe just visualizing a point of light white or red as suggested with the AH, or any color that feels right. or focus on a meaningful symbol. Hold that image gently in your mind, perhaps at the throat area, as mentioned, as you're falling asleep.
Kind of like the intention setting, but with an image.
Yeah, it's another way to focus the mind and potentially carry that focus into the dream state, introducing mental imagery as a tool.
Cool. Okay, so we've actually covered a lot of ground, a lot of concrete things to try.
We really have. Just to quickly recap for everyone listening, we talked about starting with strong motivation, that clear intention.
Right. Then improving dream recall with a journal and asking yourself, was I dreaming the moment you wake up?
Then there's the wake back to bed technique. Waking up early, reinforcing intention, going back to sleep.
And using those dream signs or reality checks during the day, questioning if you might be dreaming right now.
Plus the idea of facing fear if you become lucid in a nightmare, not running from it.
And maybe experimenting with sleeping on your right side, based on both tradition and some research findings.
And finally, trying some simple pre-sleep visualization, like a point of light or a symbol.
That's a really solid set of tools to start exploring this whole world. What's the potential payoff again? What do the sources suggest you might gain from this deep dive into dreams?
Well, increased self-awareness is a big one. The potential to work through fears, like we discussed. Gaining insights, problem solving. Lion's Roar mentioned accessing those untapped reservoirs of wisdom.
And developing power, right? They mentioned CD.
Yeah, they distinguish between relative siddhi, like being able to influence the dream environment, fly, change things, and absolute siddhi,
Which is more about.
a deeper understanding of the dreamlike, illusory nature of all reality, which ultimately means the world has less power over you. It's about liberation through understanding.
Wow. So it goes from manipulating the dream to understanding reality itself more deeply.
That's the trajectory suggested, yeah.
hmm
So the benefits can range from practical problem solving in dreams to profound shifts in your waking perspective.
And it's important to remember we pulled this from different places. Hindu philosophy, Buddhist practices, scientific studies, even online forums.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They don't all see it exactly the same way, but there's this fascinating convergence on the potential of the dreaming mind. We encourage you to explore what resonates. We're just presenting the range of ideas found in the sources.
Right. No single right way, just different tools and perspectives for your own exploration.
Exactly.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. As you start playing with these ideas, maybe asking, is this a dream during your day? Or setting that intention at night. Consider this. How might simply questioning the reality of your dreams start to subtly change how you perceive your waking reality? What kind of power or freedom might unlock just from that shift in perspective?
That's a great question to ponder. How blurring that line just a little changes the game.
Yeah. Something to observe, experiment with, and see what unfolds. Thanks for diving up with us today.